first, here's my take. As the Trump administration floods the zone with one radical shift after the other, the tariff hikes have gotten the most attention. But the policy that could end up costing the United States even more in the long run is the Trump administration's assault on the universities and on research more broadly. America has led the world in science for so long that it's easy to believe that this has always been one of the country's natural strengths. In fact, in the 19th and early 20th century, America was more a follower than a leader. British industrialists often complained about American businesses stealing their technology and violating their patents. In the first years of the 20th century, the country that walked away with the most Nobel Prizes in science was Germany, with 1/3 of all the awards. Next was Britain, with almost 20%. The US took just 6% of the Nobels in science. Three powerful forces transformed the scientific landscape in the mid-20th century. The first was Hitler, who drove a generation of the best scientific minds in Europe, many of them Jewish, to seek refuge in America. Of Germany's Nobel Prizes in science won by 1932, about a quarter were won by Jews, who made up less than 1% of the German population. Many of these scientists came to America and formed the backbone of its scientific establishment. After the 1965 immigration reform, the U.S. continued to attract the best minds in the world, many from China and India, who would come to study, then stay and build research labs and technology companies. The second force was the two world wars. By 1945, Britain, France, and most of all Germany had been utterly devastated, with millions of their citizens dead, their cities reduced to rubble, and their governments crippled with mountains of debt. The Soviet Union came out of World War II victorious, but having lost around 24 million people in the conflict. The US, by contrast, emerged in 1945 utterly dominant, economically, technologically, and militarily. The third force that propelled the U.S. forward was the visionary decision by the American government to become a massive funder of basic science. During the 1950s, total research and development spending in the U.S. reached nearly 2.5% of GDP, the majority of such spending on the planet. And it did so by creating an innovative model. Universities around the country, public and private, competed for government research funds. The federal government wrote the checks, but did not try to run the programs themselves. That competition and freedom created the modern American scientific establishment, the most successful in human history. All three of these forces are now being reversed. The Trump administration is at war with the country's leading universities, threatening them with hostile takeovers and withholding billions of dollars in research funding. America's crown jewels of science, the National Institutes of Health and the National Science Foundation, are being gutted. America's second advantage, towering over the rest of the world, has obviously ebbed since 1945. But it is worth pointing out in the last decade, China has become the world leader in many key measures of science. China has a larger share than America of articles published in the leading 82 scientific journals that the Nature Index tracks. In engineering and technology articles, China is also now well ahead of the United States. In patent applications, there is no longer any contest. China receives almost half of all applications in the world. And even in leading universities, China has gone from having 27 in the top 500 in 2010 to 76 in 2020 by one measure. The US has gone in the other direction, from 154 to 133. The final advantage that the United States has, and one that China could not match, is that it attracts the world's best and brightest. Between 2000 and 2014, over 1/3 of the Americans who won Nobel Prizes in science were immigrants. In 2019, almost 40% of all software developers were immigrants. And in the major cancer centers, in 2015, the percentage of immigrants ranged from around 30% in Fred Hutchinson to 62% at MD Anderson. But this is changing fast. Students are being rounded up to be deported, and graduate students and researchers from China now face the prospect of constant FBI investigations. China has created generous incentives to welcome its best and brightest back home. Many others are choosing to go elsewhere, from Europe to Canada to Australia. Last month, Nature magazine asked its readers, who are American researchers, whether they were thinking of leaving this country. Of the more than 1,600 who responded, a stunning 75% said that they were. These are the building blocks of America's extraordinary strength, created over the last 100 years, and they are now being dismantled in 100 days.